it, Charlotte! Don't do it, Charlotte! Don't do it, Charlotte!
My name's Nate Atwood. I'm the pastor of St. Giles Presbyterian here in Charlotte. And I think a little scripture might be a good way to start. Romans 1, which was actually foundational in the structuring of law and the understanding of law in our republic by the founding fathers, says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest to them. For God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made." Now, the way this was articulated by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence, before he made that immortal statement, "For we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." He grounded that statement in a previous statement, "the laws of nature and nature's God." And in saying that, Jefferson established how we make law in America. It's what lawyers and theologians alike have determined or labeled as natural law. Now, friends, make no mistake that while the issues in front of us are obvious, they are intense, they are about gender, they are about social madness, they are about protection of the innocent, but there is, I believe, a still deeper issue. At its root, this is about how we make law in America. And this is a fundamental violation of a 250-year-old tradition in America, that we make law on the basis of the laws of nature and nature's God. Now, there's a genius in this, because America from the beginning had many believers in Christ. John Adams, George Washington, others, you can name them. But from the beginning, there were also skeptics, such as Thomas Paine. And they put their heads together and they said, how are we going to form a republic as believers and with some unbelievers and find a common basis for law? And the answer was the laws of nature and nature's God. Now let's take this current city ordinance in front of us and what's happening nationally with this same legislation. This is an attempt to disconnect the American judicial tradition from the laws of nature and nature's God, natural law. In other words, the essence of the American foundation. This is about an attempt to redirect our republic into an entirely different basis of law. Now, you've heard it before that there is an attempt by many in the LGBTQ community to say this is just the new civil rights movement. No, it's not. Because in the civil rights movement of the 1950s and the 1960s, there was a recognition that what had driven all of the prejudice and discrimination against the black community was a violation of natural law. You may be aware that there are laws out there that would define a black person as, for example, 3/4 of a human being. And of course, that's a joke to begin with. How do you come up with 3/4 of a human being? But do you see, the idea was you look at a black brother or sister and you say, they are somehow less than human. No, they're not. You look at a black brother or sister, my goodness, you can go into the chromosomes. They are as fully human as we are. And so therefore it was an understanding of natural law that says we must grant full civil rights to blacks in America because they are obviously fully human. Now here's how natural law applies in this situation. If you look at any person in our culture, they are male or female. In fact, even if I were, God forbid, to have a sex change operation, every cell in my body says XY. I am male. And my wife, thank God, every cell in her body is XX. Now, a rational approach to making law is to stay consistent with Jefferson and the founders and to say the only reasonable way that we can make law is to step outside of ourselves. To say there must be some external standard that our culture agrees on. Adams said that democracy ultimately could be mob rule. because we cannot ground law in simply the opinion of the majority. Friends, look at the recent elections. The opinion of the majority has often been wrong. I want to suggest to you that in this movement, and this is a movement, we cannot say, well, we are the majority, so it should be this way. Then what we're doing, we are still grounding law in man, in ourselves. This is what the LGBT community does. They say that gender is not external, it's between your head. In other words, just a matter of personal opinion. Friends, it is madness to make law on personal opinion. Ultimately, it is even madness to make law on the will of the majority, because the majority can be wrong. Our founders understood it. The basis of law must be natural law, the laws of nature and nature's God. Now, if Jefferson were here and he were to ask the question, well, how are we going to decide this? He would say, whether you are a skeptic like Paine or a committed Christian like Adams, we shall go to natural law. We shall go to the laws of nature if you are a skeptic. We shall go to nature's God if you are a believer. What is self-evident? What is self-evident is that from the beginning, he created them male and female. So friends, as we fight this battle, yes, it is about gender, and yes, it is about social madness, and yes, it is about protecting the innocent majority, and yes, it is about love and care for those who have confused lives, whether they acknowledge that or not. But friends, it is deeper still. It is about the American Republic. It is about the American experiment. It is about how we do law and what we ground it in. If we lose this, my friends, if we lose this principle, we have lost our republic. And remember, the founders said, what kind of country have we given you? A republic if you can keep it. And so I say, keep it. Let us keep the republic. Let us keep our basis of law, the laws of nature and nature's God. And on that basis, I say, and I know you do too, don't do it, Charlotte.
Don't do it, Charlotte.
Keep it. Don't do it, Charlotte. Keep it.
Don't do it, Charlotte. Don't do it, Charlotte.